Most drivers assume that police encounters only turn sideways during high-speed pursuits or late-night standoffs. But the real danger usually begins during the typical roadside stop. Officers ask a question that feels casual, like it does not even matter. But it is one of the most strategic lines they have. They use it because it gets drivers to talk, guess, explain, or admit something without realizing it. That is why I call it the dirty question. Because it works on almost everyone. In this video, you will learn the exact wording officers use and how to respond with confidence. This is not about causing problems or refusing anything. It is about knowing the smart way to handle a routine stop. If you have ever wondered how a simple line can change the outcome of a traffic stop, this breakdown will show you everything. Watch closely. This is information every driver should know. You are moving with the flow of traffic when the strobe of red and blue fills your rearview mirror. Your stomach tightens as you find a safe spot to pull over. The officer approaches your window with a practiced, neutral expression that tells you nothing. He begins the encounter with a tone that suggests he is being helpful. Recognize that this is a formal investigation and that every moment is critical and every word you utter is being documented. Most motorists find themselves in trouble because they believe they can negotiate their way out of a traffic ticket. They try to be overly friendly or lighthearted to ease the tension. Some start rambling about why they were in a hurry to get home for dinner. This is exactly what the cop is waiting for. They want you to fill the void of silence because silence creates pressure. When you start talking, you are providing the very bricks they will use to build a wall around you. It is time to look at the raw mechanics of how these street encounters function. You do not need a law degree to protect your future, but you do need to be disciplined. You must maintain your composure and keep your statements to a minimum. The state follows a specific script they have refined over decades of enforcement. If you are not operating with your own set of rules, you are going to find yourself at a disadvantage before the first document is even handed over. Welcome to the Eyes of Law. I am Larry J. Brookins, a California trial attorney with over 25 years of litigation experience. One of the most frequent tactics involves the officer asking you to prove your good character by helping them out. They might mention that they want to ensure the safety of the neighborhood before asking if they can take a quick look inside your vehicle. It is phrased like a polite request, but it is a calculated legal maneuver. They are counting on your desire not to appear suspicious. They know the average person will agree to the intrusion just to demonstrate they have nothing to hide. Imagine driving home after a double shift at an Amazon fulfillment center. Your mind is heavy from 10 hours of managing inventory robotics. Your car is cluttered with gym gear and empty coffee cups. To you, it is just the mess of a long work week. To a trooper looking for a reason to dig deeper, it is a landscape of potential hiding spots. When he asks for that quick look, he is asking for a license to spend 30 minutes tearing through your personal space. If you give that permission, you are legally tied to whatever he finds, even if it is a stray tool or a bottle of vitamins that looks out of place to him. If you concede to a search, you are discarding a primary protection guaranteed by the Constitution. You are placing your trust in a stranger to search your belongings, while hoping they do not find anything they can interpret as a violation. It could be a perfectly legal item that seems questionable in the heat of the moment. Once consent is given, it is nearly impossible to withdraw it effectively. The smarter path is to calmly state that you do not consent to searches. It is not an act of defiance. It is an act of maintaining your privacy. The state also relies on open-ended questions regarding your itinerary. They want to know your origin and your destination. It feels like harmless chatter, but it is a search for discrepancies. If you mention you are heading to the office while wearing casual weekend clothes, the officer might start questioning your honesty. If you say you are coming from a certain part of town, they might link your presence there to specific criminal patterns. Consider Anthony, a young man who gets pulled over on a Friday night. The officer asks where he has been, and Anthony says he was visiting a relative. The officer checks the address and notes that the relative lives in a different direction. Now Anthony is caught in a reputation trap. That small error gives the state the leverage they need to extend the stop. If he had remained silent and focused on the legal status of the stop, the officer would have had no path to follow. A person is not obligated to explain their daily schedule to anyone. Your movements are your own business. When you provide a play-by-play of your day, you are simply giving the state more evidence to use against you later. A direct way to handle this is to ask if you are being detained or free to leave. This shifts the focus back to the legal justification for the stop and away from your personal affairs. It keeps the interaction clinical and avoids the trap of over-explanation. Let's move on, and if this video has told you something, tap the bell and hit the subscribe button. Officers often try to get you to confess to a violation before they even state why they stopped you. They want you to provide the probable cause for them. They might ask if you know why you were pulled over. If you start guessing, you might admit to an infraction they did not even witness. You might confess to a rolling stop when they stopped you for an expired registration. In that moment, you have doubled your legal exposure by simply trying to be helpful. The most effective move is to let the officer lead with the facts. You do not have to be the one to blather a confession. Stay quiet and wait for the officer to state the reason they stopped you. It is the responsibility of the state to justify their actions. Do not assist them by speculating on your own mistakes. Stay patient and wait for them to speak first. You also have to be aware of the passenger dynamic. But first, this video is for information only and does not establish an attorney-client relationship. If you need specific legal advice, consult an attorney in your jurisdiction. Now, if you're riding in a car, many people forget that everyone inside is part of law enforcement's investigation. An officer might pull your passenger aside and ask them the same questions about where you were going. If the two stories do not align perfectly, it creates a gap that the state will use to justify a more intrusive detention. If the passenger says you were at a park while you said you were at the store, the officer will immediately suspect cover-up. You should ensure that everyone in your vehicle understands the importance of remaining silent. Every occupant has the right to remain silent, and they should use it. If the officer attempts to play one person against the other, you need to end that line of questioning immediately. You do not want a friend's nervous rambling to be the reason the tow truck is called. Keep the conversation focused and the answers non-existent. The government also uses indirect questions to gauge your potential for being impaired. They might ask if you have been out celebrating or if it has been a long night. This is a subtle way to search for clues without being confrontational. If you admit to having had a single drink anytime that day, you will have opened the door to a full driving under the influence investigation. Even if you are completely sober, the admission of consumption changes the entire trajectory of the stop. The right to remain silent exists for this exact scenario. You are not required to discuss your physical condition or what you have consumed. You can respectfully decline to engage in that topic. This prevents a routine stop from escalating into a situation where you are being asked to perform physical tests on the side of a highway. Protecting your future begins with knowing when to stop talking. Be mindful of the pop-off. This is the heavy surge of emotion you feel when you believe a cop is being unfair and you want to argue back. It's an impulse trap, designed to provoke a reaction from you. If you become aggressive, raise your voice, or start lecturing the officer, he will likely see you as a threat. This provides justification to engage in escalation, turn up the heat, and try to make you go off. You win the encounter by being the most calm, professional, and uninteresting person the officer deals with during his entire shift. Stay polite, concise, and in control. The objective is always to finish the interaction and move on with your day as quickly as possible. By keeping your responses brief and not biting on the casual questions, you take away the state's momentum. You are not giving them a reason to prolong the detention. You are providing the solid wall of a citizen who understands their position. Stay focused and keep your ego in check, because one moment of trying to win an argument on the street is not worth a week in a courtroom, or worse. If this video has told you something, please hype this video, tap the bell, and hit the subscribe button for the 4 Eyes of Law. A traffic stop is nothing more than a government transaction. The officer is performing a task, and you are trying to protect your interests. You do not need to be friends, and you do not need to be hostile. You simply need to be a person who knows where the legal lines are drawn. When you stop trying to convince the officer of your innocence and start focusing on your rights, you become much harder for the system to process. Remember that everything you say is a permanent digital record. The body camera is recording your tone, your movements, and your mistakes. If you appear defensive or hostile, you are giving them footage they can use. But if you are calm and quiet, you look like someone who is simply exercising their constitutional rights. Those rights are your only true protection. Do not let the state persuade you to abandon them just because the officer has a friendly demeanor. The street is where the law is applied, and every interaction is a high-stakes evaluation. If you follow the rules of the road, you walk away with your freedom. If you let your emotions dictate your words, you are going to face the final tab, which is far more costly than any ticket. Keep your circle small, keep your responses shorter, and never forget that you are the one who decides what evidence is created during that stop. Now tap the bell and check out this next video.